All right, here we go. Section 2.1 graphs, take 2, because I just did the entire lecture and it did not record. All right, here we go. 2.1 graphs. All right, so we are going to be using what's called the Euclidean plane. And the Euclidean plane is made up of two number lines. So like this one here, this one is the x-axis. So like here is 0, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. And on this side, we have negative numbers. Okay. And so that's one number line, the x-axis. And then we have another number line that's vertical. And this one is called the y-axis. And so there's 0 right there. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. And down below is -1, -2, and -3. Okay. And if you notice here, it's broken up into 4 areas. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we call those quadrants. And this one here is quadrant 1. And we usually just use Q. And this here is quadrant 2. And here is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. Okay. And this is called the Euclidean plane. And if we want to plot a point is given by an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. Okay? So this right here, this point right here in the middle where the two axes intersect, that's a very special point. This one here is called the origin. And that one is located at 0, 0. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at plotting points. Okay, so suppose that I want to plot this point, -3, 4. Okay, so this here, this first number, -3, that's my x-coordinate, and 4 is my y-coordinate. So remember, x is a sideways motion, and y is an up and down motion. Okay, so if I want to plot -3, 4, then I would go ahead and draw this. Here is my x-axis, my y-axis, and I would go to -3. Okay, so here's -1, -2, -3, -4, +1, 2, 3, and 4 is right up there, -1, and -2. Okay, so -3, 4. So that means I have to go -3 on the x-axis, so that's down this way, and then 4 on the y, so that would be up there. So right here is where I would have the point -3, 4. Okay, so you do an x motion and then you do a y motion. Okay. All right, so go ahead and draw a Euclidean plane. I'm going to have you guys try plotting these points. Okay, so the largest number for x that you will have, you don't have to go very far with the x's, but with the y's, you're going to go anywhere from -5 to 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's make sure we get 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Okay, that's going to be our x-axis. This is going to be our y-axis. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and -1, -2, -3, and -4. And down below here we have -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and plot these 3 points. Okay, so go ahead and plot these points. Okay, and label them. So A will be at 2, -3. B is at 1, 1. C is at -2, -5. And then let's start with these 3 points, and then I'll give you another 3 points. So go ahead and plot those 3 points. Go ahead and hit the pause button, and then come back to see if you plotted them correctly. Okay, so 2, -3. This is A. B is at 1, 1, right over here. And C is at -2, -5, which is down here. Okay, so these are the 3 points you should have gotten. A should be down here, B should be right there, and C is down here, -2, -5. And A was +2, -3. And B is 1, 1. Okay? All right, very good. Try these 3 points. Letter D, 0, 7. Letter E, -1.5. Let me write that. That looks like a 7. Okay, so -1.5, 5. And letter F will be -3, 0. Okay, so go ahead and hit the pause button, plot those 3 points, and then come back to see if you got them correct. Okay, 0, 7 should be right here on the axis. If you're not on the axis, then you're not at 0. You have to be right on the line. Okay, so this is letter D. Letter E, -1.5. -1.5 is going to be right here between -1 and -2. So you have to go halfway between -1.5 and then 5. So right here is letter E. And then letter F is -3, 0. Again, you have to be right on the line right over here. If you're not on the axis, if you're not on the x-axis, then you're not at 0 for x, for y. Okay? All right, so those are your 3 points. One right here on the y-axis, one over here between -1 and -2, and this one here on the x-axis. Okay. All right, very good. Okay, so the other thing we're going to cover in this section is the midpoint. So the point that's in the middle of 2 points, halfway between the 2 points. Okay, so you're going to have to memorize this formula. Okay, so midpoint formula. Okay, so given 2 points, and I'll call the first one x1, y1, and I'll call the second one x2, y2. 2 random points. Okay, so if you have 2 points, the midpoint, which is the point halfway between them, the midpoint is, it's given by this formula. So it's still a point. So you have, you still have an x value and a y value for your midpoint. Okay, so the way you find the x value and the y value is by adding the x values of the 2 points and dividing by 2. and adding the y values of the 2 points and dividing by 2. Okay? So that's your formula. That's the formula that you need to memorize. Okay? So memorize this, please. It's not a too difficult formula. Okay, so let's take a look at an example here. Find the midpoint. So find the point halfway between -3, 5 and 1, -2. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So we know that the midpoint is going to be at an x value and at a y value, because it is also a point, so we need an x value and a y value. And the way we find that is we add the two x values. So right here, -3 and 1, those are our x values. So we're going to add the x values and divide by 2. And then we're going to add the y values, 5 plus -2, and divide by 2. Okay? All right, so -3 plus 1, -2 over 2, and 5 plus -2 is 3. Okay, and we can simplify these. Okay, -2 over 2 is -1, and 3 over 2 is the same as 1.5. Okay, having it written here as a mixed number, 1.5, makes it easier to figure out how you're going to graph it. Because here we can see that 1.5 is a number that's between 1 and 2. When it's written like this, 3 over 2, it's kind of hard to see that that's a number between 1 and 2. Okay? So this here is our final answer. Okay? So I'm going to have you try that. Go ahead and find the midpoint. Find the midpoint between the given points. Okay? So go ahead and try these two. Try this one. 6, 8, 12, 16. Find the point that's halfway between those two. And find the midpoint between these two. Okay, so go ahead and hit the pause button and give it a try, and then come back and see if you got the correct answer. Okay, so for number 1, if you got 912 for your answer, that is correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we got that answer. So you add the x's, 6 plus 12, divide by 2, and then you add the y's and divide by 2. Okay, and when you do that, you get 18 divided by 2, and here you get 24 divided by 2. And that's how you get 9 and 12. Okay. For number 2, if you got 1/2 and -8 as your answer, then you are correct. Okay. So let's see how we got that answer. So we add the x's, -2 plus 3, divide by 2. And then we add the y values, -8 plus -8, divide by 2. Okay. -2 plus 3 is 1. And then over here, negative 8 plus negative 8 is actually negative 16. So simplifying these, 1/2. And then over here is actually negative 8. Okay, so that's how you get your answers. All right, very good. All right, and then another type of problem. So here you were given the endpoints, okay? 2 endpoints, right? And what you did was you found the midpoint, which is the point halfway between the two, okay? So here you were looking for the point in the middle. So now we're going to take a look at a problem where you know this and you already know the midpoint, but the question is, um, where is this one? Okay, what's the location of that one if you know the two other points? Okay, so let's have a look. All right, so if negative 2, 3 is the midpoint, so there, we know the midpoint of segment PQ. Segment, they just mean like a line segment. Segment PQ. So that just means here's your line segment, and here's a point P, and it goes all the way to your point Q. So that's a segment of PQ. Okay. So, and negative 2, 3 is right there in the middle. Okay. Negative 2, 3 is the midpoint of segment PQ. And the coordinates of P are negative 8, 5. Find the coordinates of Q. Okay. We can call Q x2, well, we can just call it x and y because we know the other ones. Okay, so we're trying to find the x and y value for the point Q. Okay. We know the midpoint, and we know one of the endpoints. Okay. So this is like what we know. This right over here. This one here is the midpoint. I'm going to call it MP. All right. And then we know this over here. This is like, we'll call this X1, Y1. Okay. And then we don't know this one here. Okay. So let's go ahead and use our midpoint formula that ties all three of those pieces together. Okay. So we know that our midpoint is adding the x's, right? Divided by 2, adding the y's, dividing by 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. So over here for the midpoint, I can plug in negative 2, 3. And for x1 and y1, I can plug in negative 8 and 5. Negative 8, I don't know this one. 5, I don't know this. Okay, all right. And so then here, you're going to make this leap here. So this is an xy value. This is an xy value, right? So this x coordinate, negative 2, should be equal to this x coordinate. Okay, this y value should be equivalent to this y value. So we're going to set those equal to each other and do this in two parts. So the x coordinate. So we can say that negative 2 should be equal to negative 8 plus x2 over 2. Okay, and then over here, we're going to solve for the y coordinate, and we're able to say that 3 is equal to 5 plus y2 over 2. Okay, you see that? This piece should be equal to that piece. This piece should be equal to this piece. Okay? All right, and now we can go ahead and solve. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 2. Okay? To clear my fractions. Okay? So that leaves me with -4 equals to -8 plus x2. And now I'm going to go ahead and subtract, no, not subtract. I'm going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides. And I get x2 equals to 4. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here with the y2. I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 2, clear my fraction. Okay, so here they cancel out. And so I end up with 6 on the left-hand side. So 6 equals 5 plus y2. And then I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. And that will cancel. So I am left with y2 equals 1. Okay, so that's the location of Q. Q is located at 4, 1. Okay, all right, so that is it. That is 2.1. If you have any questions, make sure you email me or you text me through the Remind app. You get a quicker response if you text me. Other than that, make sure you're keeping up with the homework. You should be finishing this first set of homeworks in a few days. Okay, please do not take an entire week because you're going to get more homework during that week. Okay, so please keep up, and I'll see you next time.